Today we're going to compare the Faber Castell Shake and Paint with the Sharpie Creative Marker with the Posca marker. Which one do you think will be the best? The Faber Castell Shake and Paint marker is new for 2025. It first saw it at Creativation this year, and there are 16 colors. It comes in metallic, neon, and regular colors. The Sharpie Creative Marker came out in 2024, and there are 24 colors in limited sizes. The Posca marker came out in 1983. It had 22 colors when it originally came out, and it came in 4 tip sizes. Let's go into all of these colors because I think the colors tell an interesting story. So there are other paint markers, and I'm going to mention some of these during this video, but right now we're focusing on the Sharpie Faber Castell and the Posca markers. Sharpie has 24 colors right now. So they have regular set that includes the full rainbow. Now that's important. And then they came out with the earth tone colors that could be their own standalone palette. Posca really wins in this battle right here because they have 71 marker colors. They started out with 22 and now they have 71. They keep getting new colors each year. We'll see if 2026 will bring us any new colors. We got 2 new colors this year, and they're both in the green family, grape green and forest green. I was a little bit disappointed with the Faber Castell Shake and Paint marker line. So this marker line, I didn't tell you before, but it is their black edition. Their black edition is basically their not as good version. So any supplies you get, little hint here, if they're black edition, they're not going to be as good as their regular colored pencils, markers, or anything else. It's like they were like, how can we make these cheaper and still sell them to people and have that Faber Castell name, but not have as good quality? The colors kind of follow this trend. They come in metallic, as I said before, and neon, and then regular colors. But their regular colors only come in 6 colors, and there's no orange or purple. So I think you could probably make orange and purple from these, but they don't have that color in the actual package. And paint markers are really hard to make other colors with because the tip gets all destroyed when you do it, and then you have to color it out, and then you end up wasting marker color. You could paint it on, but then why wouldn't you just buy paint? The colors in the Faber Castell line seem a little bit gimmicky to me, and this reminds me of another brand, which is Crayola, where they came out with paint markers, but they have glitter, they have liquid gold, they have all these things, but it's not a consistent paint line where you can't just paint the rainbow. Like, if you're going to make marker colors, make them in the broad spectrum of the color range. Faber Castell could have saved themselves here by making an 8-pack and including orange and purple, I think, in their packaging. And it would have been more complete. And then they could have the neons and the metallic just kind of separate as fun markers to add to the regular color palette. But since the regular color palette seems like it's missing a few, it just doesn't seem as complete to me. Let's talk about the cost of these markers, because this is what I found to be really interesting. The Faber Castell markers right now, and this is on Blick, and I think that prices were a little bit higher on Amazon. They came in at $17.55, $17.55, and $12.19 for the neon. So that would be a total of $47.29. And these are September 2025 prices, so they could go up, they could go down. That averages to $2.90 a marker. So remember that number, $2.90, which, let me tell you, it's kind of expensive. If you want to get the black and white separately, you can get those, but they're going to cost you $3.50 a piece. And I don't think you can get the other markers individually yet. The cost of this Sharpie is actually one of the cheapest. On Blick, it was $14.90 for all of them. So you could get all the colors for $29.80. You do have different tip sizes. So if you want all the tip sizes, you might spend a little bit more. It averaged to be $1.24 a marker. Already that is a better deal than the Faber Castell markers. If you want to get the individual colors on Blick, they're $2.79. Sharpie is notorious for it, is they don't put their names on their markers, which I feel like if you're going to compete with Posca, and I think Sharpie might be in a good position because they started off with the same number as markers as Posca. You have to put the name of the colors on the markers, especially as your color range increases, so people know what to call them and they know what to get if they run out of one, especially since now we can buy them individually. Hopefully, eventually they would just be like, okay, we'll put all the names on the markers. The Posca markers sell for about $14 for a 16-pack on Blick, and that averages to be $2.50 a marker. That is cheaper than the Faber Castell markers. Let me just show you right there. It's cheaper. It's not cheaper than the Sharpie ones. So if you want a dill, maybe you go for the Sharpie ones, but it is cheaper than the Faber Castell ones. If you want to get the markers individually, that's where the price is going to go a lot higher. On Blick, it's $4.08. So definitely worth buying in a pack. Let's talk about the packs for a second. One thing marker companies are notorious for are not selling all their markers in one pack. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I think it's because, and I saw this with Sharpie, is they see that sometimes the 6-pack sells better than the 12-pack, better than the 18-pack. So they make different sizes of packs. So for some reason, Faber Castell decided to do 6, 6, and 4. So they did 6 regular colors, 6 metallic, and 4 neons. What I wish they would have done is 8, 6, and 4, or a way to get all of them together, because that's not a ton of markers, and it would have been nice if it just came all in one pack, like 16 colors, but I can see how they weren't really cohesive as a unit, why you wouldn't want to sell them as one pack. So, because the metallic and the neon are so different than the regular markers, but it is kind of annoying to have to get all 3 packs. The Sharpie markers come in blister packs, so you can get all 12 of one color, all 12 of another. I don't know if they'll combine it to get 24. And then you can also get, I think, like 6 and 6. So you can get different combinations if you want different colors of the Sharpie markers. The Posca markers come in a ton of different sizes. So they come in 8 packs. They have them sorted by theme. Because they've been around for so long, they can start doing this. So they sell them mostly in 8 and 16 packs. I haven't seen the packs in a lot more like on Blick. Sometimes they come in like 40, but most of the time they come in 8 and 16 if you get them from like Michael's or Jerry's or Amazon or from Blick. I have seen, and I did pick up a set that had all of the markers in it. I'm not sure, there was like 100 or 200 markers in it, and it had basically all the 3M and the 5M. I started out with an 8-pack because I thought that was how many Posca markers there were. And then I realized that there were a lot more colors, and then I got one of every color, and I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna get all the sizes, and we're gonna go into the sizes next. I'm just gonna make sure I have one of every color, and then over time, I love them so much that I've picked up so many more, and I don't quite have like every single color in every single size, but I'm getting there for sure. And I really love these markers. My kids love these markers, and so that's why we have so many of them. And definitely if you buy them bulk, so you can buy them on Posca's website, and that's where you can usually get more than like the 8 or 16 packs. They'll sell them on their website as like special promotions, and they're not always around for a long time, but they're around like on the holidays and for back to school. One of the most important things is that you can get the Posca and the Sharpie individually at your local art store, or you can get it on Blick or wherever they sell markers. The great thing about this is you don't have to buy a brand new pack if you just want one new color. And that's where Faber Castell does not have that option available yet, only for black and white. Let's talk about the ink dispersion of these markers. So the Sharpie markers, you don't have to press down on the tip. You can shake them and they'll make a little bit of sound. So if the paint isn't looking great, then you can shake it, but then they disperse without having to press down, which is really good. I think they really worked on these markers. They work super well. I'm super impressed. And I'm not sure what technology went into it, but I've used the markers a year later and they haven't dried up. So that's super impressive. The Faber Castell Shake and Paint, you have to shake it. And then after that, you have to press the tip down to get the ink out. And that is the same with the Posca. So the Posca, you shake it and then you press the tip down. I just press it down a little bit and then it'll come out. Now we're gonna go to one of the other ones, the Crayola markers. I haven't really focused on the Crayola markers because they're not even in the same comparison. They're probably most similar to the Faber Castell line because of the amount of colors they have, but those are all over the board, and some of them you have to press down and they dry out, and it took like 4 minutes for the ink to come out. So I would not recommend the Crayola paint markers because the ink didn't come out very well. As far as the actual ink that comes out, I would say the Posca markers and the Sharpie markers are pretty good. The coverage is really good. They're opaque. I will say that the Faber Castell markers are, you know, they're the black edition. It's not as great paint dispersion. you don't get the same coverage, the same opaqueness that you would get with the Sharpie and the Posca marker. It is nice that they have color names on the markers, but I don't really like the color names because code red, why don't you just call it red, yellow, green? That's not actually a really good blue, and then black, and then white moon. So why not just say red? These seem gimmicky to me. It seemed like they're made for a younger audience, whereas the Posca and the Sharpie are made for a wider audience. And these seem like maybe they're trying to reach the tween or the teen, or I don't even know. But I think they missed the mark by not making them good names. Let's talk about all the tip sizes. So that is one of the things that is like most important when looking at these markers, because the tips can make a big difference when you use these markers. The Faber Castell markers come in 2 sizes. So there's one tip on one side of the marker and one tip on the other. So this is where they're a little bit different than the Sharpie Creative Markers or the Posca, because they're dual-sided, which can be a good and bad thing, because you're going to have basically the same amount of ink, but it just won't last as long for both of the sides. So if you run out of a certain color, you'll have to go and buy that again. And like if you like a certain size, in a different color, then sometimes you'll run out of ink faster or sooner. So, or if you just want to use one side, then you're stuck buying like the other side too. They come in a rounded bullet tip, which is 3 millimeters, and a pointed bullet tip, which is 1 millimeter. So that is really nice that they have the capability to do the different sizes of lines. The Sharpie markers come in a bullet tip and a brush tip, which is amazing. And then they also come in a smaller bullet tip now. I don't have the smaller bullet tip yet because they just came out like a month ago and I haven't gotten my hands on them yet. But I will say the bullet tip on the Sharpie Creative Marker, the Posca also has a bullet tip, and I prefer the bullet tip on the Posca than I do on the Creative Marker, because the one on the Sharpie marker is really flexible and it's a little bit hard to use. For like an actual bullet tip, it's not super consistent, and I think that's probably why they made a smaller bullet tip, so you can get more smaller lines. I love using the smaller bullet tips for like planners or writing, because you just have to wait for it to dry and it's super pretty. So I think that was a smart move on behalf of Sharpie to make smaller bullet tip. The brush tip on the Sharpie is pretty good. They beat Posca to that one because Posca didn't have the brush tip until this year. So the sizes of the Posca, they come in 10 different sizes, and all of them start with PC, which I'm not sure what that stands for. So they have the PC1M, which is a bullet tip, and the PC1MR, which is a metal tip. And then they have PC3M, which is a bullet tip. PC5M is a bullet tip, and these are just getting bigger and bigger in sizes. PC7M, PC8K, PC17K, PCF350, which is a brush, PC5BR, which is another brush, but it's better than the 350 brush. And then they have the Posca Mopper, which are really big and they're really good for graffiti. All of these markers can be used on different surfaces. That's kind of why paint markers are so popular, is you can use them on glass, you can use them on wood, you can use them on paper, you can use them on windows. If you use it on a non-porous surface, then it'll wash off. So if you write on the window and you do some cute decorations for like the holidays or something, then you could wipe it off when the holiday is over, and then you could write up something else at a different time. If you put it on a porous surface, it will stain it. So like even fabric, or if you put it on wood, it won't always get out. It depends if the wood has a finish or not, whether or not it will come off the wood. And you can see on my table that people have used Posca markers on here and they have not come out. Overall, the best markers that I found, all the things that we've talked about today, are the Posca markers. They come in 71 different colors, 10 different sizes. They've just been on the market for like almost 42 years, which they have that history, and they've been selling them for so long that they've just been able to really cater their product to the consumer. And I think a lot of these companies are like, oh, Posca keeps growing and growing. They might be doing something right. And so I think that's why they've started to jump into the game. The next one is the Sharpie Creative Marker. And at first I was a little skeptical of this one, but the more I've used it, and the fact that they haven't dried out and they keep coming out with more, and they're really pretty, and their color palettes are good, and they're coming out with more colors, I think they have potential to go far. I do wish that the color names were on there, and I think that would take them just a little step above where they are right now, and the potential for a lot of people to really gravitate towards them because they are a cheaper option than the Posca markers. And then the last but least, I mean, on these, I will actually not put the Faber Castell markers at the end because there's another marker that will win third place that we didn't mention at all. It only comes in one size. It's super expensive. It's from Copic. It's an acrylic marker. They come in 24, but like I said, it was like $100 to get them all. So Copic came up with an acrylic marker. I did this painting of the Starry Night with them. I don't love that they only come in one size. I think they have potential too, like Sharpie does. If they start to make a brush, bigger sizes, they can start to compete with Sharpie and Posca. I don't know if Sharpie or the Copic would be number 2, but because for this, we'll just put it as the third place because Sharpie, it has 3 sizes now and Copic only has 1. And then the next one I'll put the Faber Castell Shake and Paint. These ones are a little bit higher than Crayola. I know this wasn't a versus Crayola, but the Crayola is dead last because they're hard to prime. I don't like their color selection. I like the color selection a little bit better for the Faber Castell. They're at least all the same consistent marker, which the Crayola is not. And they like have the dual tips. I think Faber Castell has potential. I wish they would raise the bar a little bit, make the ink a little bit more opaque, make them a little bit nicer to use, expand the color selection, and then they could probably compete with like the Copic and the Sharpie. I don't know if any of the companies are going to compete with Posca for a few more years, just because I see Posca has that market so much, and they came out with a brush, and that's what Sharpie had the advantage over Posca at. And now that Posca has those and they're in 16 colors and Sharpie only has the 12 colors in brush, I don't know. It's one of those things where like, they better catch up soon because Posca's going to see it, and for them, they're not completely starting their line right now. They're like, oh, Sharpie's doing this and we're going to add this one in, and they already have so many sizes. So what do you guys think? Do you guys like my selection of the markers? Would you order them differently? Would you put one in a different spot than the others? Let me know if you end up getting any of these markers and what you create with them, and tag me on Instagram or on YouTube or wherever you post your content or your drawings. And I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.